Rose, thank you so much for being here today, particularly because we've already done this once together and I did not record it very well. And now we're in the beautiful studio today. Do you know what? When I completely messed it up and I was like, this woman's so busy, I feel terrible asking her to do this again. There was also a moment with me of like knowing you would do it because I was like, she's such a nice woman that she's actually going to be okay with this. And I feel like there's an element of like when you get to a certain senior position, it's like, oh, I should be terrified of saying to you, I've messed this up. But you were just so gracious about it. But I almost expected that reaction from you. So thank you so much for doing this again. And thank you for being so approachable in that process.
Oh, Chloe, it's such a pleasure. And you haven't lived until you've messed at least 100 things up. So here we are again.
And apparently you've changed. We haven't spoken about this, but you've got more insight into your superpower since we last spoke.
I should I just talk about?
Yeah, please do.
So the last time we did this, I talked about being stealthy and that being my superpower. And I'm going to extend that to unexpected. Somebody said to me the other day, you're so unexpected in what we think you'll be when you turn up, and it's really joyful, Rose. And I thought that was just a nice thing. And I said to this individual, tell me more about that. And he said, we just never know with you. And most people are really, who they are. They're fairly predictable. He said, your unpredictability is one of the great surprises for us. And we always turn up to a meeting thinking, where is she going to take this? What trend is she going to rip out? How is she going to shape this conversation? I just think that was cool. So unexpected is kind of where I'm taking it. It's similar to stealthy, but there's something about it that is about being surprising.
Yeah, and being surprised. And I remember going to a training session once and they talked about how in work you should always try and surprise and delight people. It's like that element of like, how can I be, to use your language, unexpected and in a good, healthy way? Because I feel, and can we talk a little bit deeper about that in terms of what moments does that show up for you?
Sure.
Let's go there.
In my job all the time, I think like you, a lot of my day is consumed with client meetings. I'll talk to at least a half a dozen of our clients every day, a lot of our leaders, a lot of our people. I have an open door policy. And oftentimes people are coming to tell me news. Now, sometimes that news is good. Sometimes it's not so good. But I think what I love about it is the unexpected nature of how I will respond to that news. Oftentimes when it's bad news, I'm immediately thinking about the fact that they're probably terrified or they don't know what's going to happen or whether my reaction will be one of support or not. So even to be unexpected in terms of deep support or, okay, well, that happened. How do we fix it? Or what's the solution? Or don't worry, bad things happen all the time. It's okay. And I think that is a great superpower to just be unexpected, because people often play the tape in their own head about what they think your reaction will be. And if you're exactly the opposite or exactly what they need in that moment, that is a great comfort to people, I think. And there's no point me getting cross at a error that probably could have been avoided. It's done. The cat's out of the bag. It's okay. Well, that's a royal screw up from top to bottom. Let's talk about how we fix it. And oftentimes I will find the black humor in it. That's also unexpected, because when things go terribly, that's when my black humor kicks in. I can find black humor in anything, Death. It's kind of funny when you think about it. Just as you get good at life, you die. The ultimate joke. So I think that is kind of how I live with that every day.
I love the question around how can I be exactly what that person needs in that moment. And you're talking about moments of that kind of raw vulnerability when people have got to admit that something hasn't gone a certain way. To show up for that person is exactly what they need. I've never really thought about that before, and I love that.
Look, I'm a fan of great books. To Kill a Mockingbird is probably one of my all-time favourites, but there's a line where Atticus Finch is talking to his kids about walking around in somebody else's shoes. And obviously that book is about, civil rights, what's happened in a small southern town. And it strikes me that if you can just pause and stop thinking about your own, oftentimes selfish reaction, and walk in somebody else's shoes and think about what it must be like for them, you will behave in a much more useful way. I think useful is a really great word, being useful. And I also remember Warren Buffett in one of his commencement speeches at one of the universities one of the kids put their hands up and said, give me some advice for life. And he said, be useful in your job, in your relationship, and in the world. And what a great piece of advice. Be useful. I think it's awesome.
Can you give me, because I'm so in, your word of unexpected is actually quite funny, because I actually feel so like I have no idea where this is going to go. Like, I was excited this morning knowing I was talking to you, because I was like, God knows where she's going to take this. And I feel like every time we have a chat, I do completely relate to that person, because I don't know what's coming next. But that was the advice that was given there. What would be your life advice that you would give from your experience?
Know yourself. I am still shocked. And I don't know why this is the case. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's parenting. I don't know. But you have to really know yourself better than anybody and be a friend to yourself. The only way you can be a friend to yourself and love yourself in a really healthy way is to know yourself. And I'm still amazed at how many conversations I have with people where I sit back and I think to myself, they don't know themselves at all. And you've got to really figure out, what are your deal breakers? What do I really want? And then you've got to write it down. Because people that have a good plan, they write it down. But that starts with knowing yourself, really knowing yourself. And I really know myself. My parents made that a point in how they raised me, my brother and my sister. I'm the youngest of 3. But my father said to me, the best relationship you will have is the one you have with yourself. Get to know yourself, Rose. Get to know your deal breakers. Get to know the kinds of people you want in your life. Get to know when someone crosses your line. You know how people often give? They give too much and in the wrong way. And it's not who they are. And they can't figure out what everything is feeling so bad. It's probably because they don't know themselves enough to say no, not for me.
Yeah, but like the word boundaries is thrown around all the time these days, right? But you can't have boundaries unless you know at your core who you are. I had a really interesting experience when you were saying about relationship with yourself. So this would have been last year, so I would have been 33, and my friend said to me, "Oh, I can't wait to get back and have a relationship with myself." And I genuinely turned to her and said, "What's that?" Because I so did not have one. Like, I didn't understand the difference between knowing myself. And I'm actually personally on that journey, and obsessively on that journey of learning who I am. And to your point, there's learning the non-negotiables. But I think it's a really scary topic for people's self-awareness, because you're almost like, you had it from childhood. I'm picking it up now in my 30s. It's the unknown of the unknown. Like, if you, how do you define, how can you really quantify when, oh, I know myself now, because it's a lifelong journey. Can we dig a little, because I love this topic. Can we dig a little deeper into what it means to truly know yourself, how that shows up for you in your life, what you've done to harness that? Like, will you just give me all your wisdom in this space?
Delighted to,
Thanks.
Chloe, delighted to. I mean, first of all, I'm a big fan of the Stoics. I study Stoicism. I have done for the longest time. Marcus Aurelius and Seneca. I would say to everybody listening to this, get to understand what the Stoics were on about, because they were really onto something. And the tenet of their philosophy is really get to know who you are and what in life will make you happy. And then they teach about the things you can control. Very little. I can't control anything except for 3 things: how I react in a certain situation, the values and the behaviours that I behold, and what I will do for myself and by myself. There's very little in life. And when I say to people, do you have any idea how little you can control? Now, you could be angry at me, Chloe. I can't control that, but I can control the way that I react to your anger. I can either be kind and say to you, what's upset you today, Chloe, because I know this is out of character. Or I can go, how dare you be angry at me, and we have a knockdown dragon fight and we lose our friendship over it. So I would say to anyone and everyone who's listening, figure out and be comfortable with how little control in life you have. I could walk out of the doors of this lovely studio here at Nova and get creamed by a bus. Done. Game over. Dead. Can't control other drivers on the road. Can't control what happens at WPP. What I can control is what I do in my job at WPP. Now, that is really hard, because most people, and this is the truth, most people are those awful 2 words, control freaks. Their whole life is trying to control stuff they cannot control. You can't control your health. All you can do is eat well, get enough sleep, don't do anything silly like take drugs, don't drink to excess. That you can control. Whether you get some terrible disease, you really can't control that. That's in the hands of the gods. I think once you make peace with that and you live in the part of the world that you can control, everything in life becomes really easy.
There's that element of control is because people are looking for safety, right? Our brains are wired for safety. And I think that's why we compare ourselves to other people. Like, I am blown away since I've been doing this kind of self-belief work in the amount of times perfectionism comes up,
Yeah.
imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
just constantly, in terms of everyone is suffering from that. And I don't even people pleasing.
Yeah.
There's like so many key themes that I'm seeing. And I think what I love that why we're talking about self-awareness is because I think the savior to all of those is self-awareness. I feel like if we know who we are, we know that we at our core believe that we are capable of, if everything goes wrong, I'll be okay because I'm me and I've still got me at the end of the day.
I could not have said it better myself. I mean, I think the funny thing about perfectionism and being perfect, it's crazy. I mean, I have a list of faults a mile long. Everybody does in their own way. Everyone is flawed. I have never sought to be perfect because I know I am so not perfect. It is hilarious, my faults. But here's the thing, I'm aware of them. I know what my faults are. I know that I am impatient, so I need to work on that. I know that I am quick to temper. I have to work on that. I had a terrible temper as a child. I remember jumping all over my big sister and wailing on her. She took one of my toys. I lost it. My father came and picked me up off of her as I was thrashing about. And I remember saying to my dad in Croatian, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And he said, too bad, because I love you. So in that moment, he couldn't control my anger and my terrible temper, but he met it with love. So he immediately took all of the fire out of the fight. And then I started crying and I said, I love you too. I'm so sorry, right? So that's a little example. And I was like 4 or 5 at the time at most. So I think that if you know, again, that goes back to knowing yourself. I know that I'm not perfect. I know what my faults are, and there are many. But because I'm aware of them, I can at least do something about them. And that comes back to control. I can at least do something about them because I'm aware of them, but that's deep self-awareness.
I'm going to ask you to go a bit deeper on that, because what we're kind of touching on here is like our shadow work, right? Like the parts of us that we don't necessarily want to look at. I think that's been a big journey for me this year around the self-belief stuff of like learning my strengths. I've also had to face the parts of me that I'm not necessarily as proud of, and understand why they're causing certain behavior. Are you willing to share any of your kind of stuff that about yourself that you've not liked so much and had to
Sure.
face, and what do those moments look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely impatience and a temper, which is really hard. I mean, I've had to really work at being patient. Also, not being quick to judge. Like, I look at the people that I'm working with, I'm looking at the clients, and because I'm a quantitative futurist and I've got a great and vast repository of data at my disposal, and I'm voracious in my reading and knowledge, oftentimes I'm sitting there going, oh my God, just get to the answer. It's that. How could you not see it? And then I've got to go, Rose, calm down and stop being unkind. Give them the time to get to the answer. Just because you're there doesn't mean they're there. Stop judging, and maybe, and this is the hardest part, maybe your answer is a crappy answer and their answer is so much better than yours that you need to just stop, pull your head in and stop. So right off the bat, I've just exposed several faults of mine: impatience, quick to temper, being judgmental, thinking I'm smarter than the other person and not understanding why they can't get to an answer as quickly as I can. But if I pause and go, just stop being a dick, Rose, just stop it, oftentimes I will reveal that their answer is better than mine. I mean, the one strength that I have is that I love smart people who disagree with me. Because if you love smart people who disagree with you, and I'm a fan of people who disagree with me because then they've got a better solution to mine, I'll take whatever answer is available to me if it is the right solution for our clients or for our business. So I'm good. The one thing I've become very, very good at is going, that's better, let's do that, and dropping my own idea by the wayside.
But I think people's ego gets in the way of that. Like, I was thinking around why I think that you're such a good leader on the way here this morning. And I think there's an element of like, you've achieved so much that there's a layer of peace that comes with you. And I was thinking about like when you're watching people kind of climb the ranks, and there's such a deep level of self-doubt in people that shows up as ego.
Yeah.
And that then shows up as not meeting people where they're at, or thinking, how can I be useful to you? And it's their vulnerabilities. And I've been doing a lot of coaching with people this week where they're telling me about the way their managers or leaders are behaving. And I'm like, that's coming from their own insecurity. That person's scared. Like, that's not someone like, being a bitch and micromanaging. I'm hearing a terrified person that's out of their depth, and you're getting the repercussions of that situation. And how can they then flip that around?
That's huge. Can I say you have nailed all behavior from most leaders. It's interesting when I really think about poor leadership or bad behavior, myself included, anyone that I see, because we all have those moments, you can trace it back to two things. They either weren't loved enough, or they don't know that they have any real value or skill. So it's insecurity and a lack of compassion or love as a little kid. And I think to myself, God, I was loved so much by my mum and dad. They helped me understand who I am at my core. And it's funny you talk about achievement. I don't think I've achieved anything at all in the professional sphere. It's a job. I try to do it well. But my only achievement in life is to be a great partner to my fiancé, a really good sibling to my brother and sister, and hopefully a terrific daughter to my mum. And I know that I was a good kid to my dad. He passed away a long time ago, and I miss him every day of my life. There isn't a day that I do not think about my dad. And he died 25 years ago. So I think about achievement, and the only achievement I want to have is good human being. And I love that my brother says, he's got 4 kids. He goes, I love when he says to me, you're a terrific aunt. And I love that my sister, who's got her first baby, she's now 17 months old, she made me godmother. My brother and I are godmother to our sister's firstborn. She says to me, you're just a really good aunt. And I love that all my godchildren, I've got several of them, and the oldest one turned 18 last week, and her mum and dad sent me a text and said the best decision we ever made was making you her godmum. That's achievement. Now, the work stuff is kind of irrelevant. I'm like, yeah, it's whatever, WPP president, all well and good, but in the end, no one will remember me for that. No one will remember me for the work. What they will remember me for, hopefully, is being a decent human being in the world. So I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, I do think there's an element though of because I've been grappling with this at the moment around your work being a big part. If you do a job you love, your work becomes a big part of who you are. And I was grappling with this for a while around like, I didn't want to be one of those people who work was their identity, because you see people get made redundant, they've made work their whole life and who they are, and then they lose their job and they're completely lost. But I do find that actually I want to respect the work that I do because it's so important to me. And I do want to, I want it to be okay for that to be a priority in my life. And I think what you will be remembered for when you say about work is being that person who was useful in those moments when people were vulnerable, and those teachings and those learnings that you will give. And what I love about what you're saying is you're switching the narrative, which everyone is getting wrong, from what do I want to be to who do I want to be.
Yeah.
And I think if everyone started living their life on who do I want to be rather than what do I want to be, the world would just be in such a happier space. Could we be doing things as like an experience, an experiment, instead of what's the next milestone that I need to hit?
That's beautiful. I mean, I'm going to repeat that for everybody listening. What do I want to be to who do I want to be? I don't think we spend enough time figuring that out, and I don't think that we really understand the effect that we have on people. If you turn up kindly, with a smile, looking them in the eye, asking them if they want a bottle of water, and I've got one right here, right now, asking them if they've eaten, if there's a lunchtime meeting and somebody comes in at 1, I'll try to always just grab them a sandwich, because I'm just they've probably gone from meeting A to meeting B. They probably have no time for food. I can get them a coffee and a sandwich. It's no big deal. Like these little things in life that are all about being human and seeing somebody and just forgetting about the job and looking at them as a person. I worry that in our society we are losing sight of that, and I don't want us to. I fear for the world if we don't just stop and go, what do they need as a person? Not what do they need as a creative or an account director or a leader of a media business. What do they need as a human being?
Can we go back? I want to give people a bit of a. I'm going to use your brain in this.
Sure.
I think I want to. I've picked a part of your brain that I want to explore, and I want you to go full Rose on these kinds of conversations now in terms of bringing all your wisdom. But I think, wouldn't it be amazing to leave people from this episode with a bit of like, how do I find myself? Because you're so self assured, and I'm feeding off that energy just by being in the room with you. You're getting me a bit excited by that. So we've talked about values around knowing, and your values must guide your decisions, right? Is there anything you'd add on values before we move on from that point?
I would say most people are very, I think, frankly, and this is going to be really interesting to say this out loud, dishonest about what their values really are. Now, if one of your values is to be selfish with your time for your loved ones, then that's okay. Being deal breaker on who you want to spend your time with is okay. Everyone wants to be, I think, a little bit worthy and very righteous. It's easy to be self-righteous about these values, but be very honest about those values. For example, there are ways that I behave in my private life that are so private. My values are that I'm not, for example, on Facebook. I'm not on Insta. I'm not on X, and it's a deliberate choice for me because I want to keep what's private private and what's public public. And the Rose Herceg that shows up at work is the Rose Herceg that has to lead an organisation of 2,700 people, and I get it, that's my job, and I try to do it awfully well. But the Rose that is snuggling with her fiancé in her bathrobe and Ugg boots, which is what you'll find me wearing when I get home after a work dinner, is the Rose that can just be in her skin. And I'm unapologetic about the fact that that is who I really am. If I could wear a bathrobe to work every day and dressy Ugg boots, I probably would. I'm not sure it would be very polite to everybody else in the room. But I think that's a very honest sense of being self-aware. And those values are true to me. But I think even in talking about values, what are they for real? And in that moment, sometimes I don't speak for hours on end because I speak for a living. And I'll come home to Simon and say, darling, I just want to sit on the sofa, hold your hand, stream some cheesy TV show. And I don't have much left right now, but I'm here with you because I love you. But I need an hour of just silence with you by my side. Comfortable silence is one of my values, like being really comfortable. Most people would go, what do you mean? You're coming home and you're not interacting with him. I'm like, no, not for at least an hour. And then we can have dinner or talk or whatever. But I think even in values, I think we dress them up to what we think is fashionable.
And what you're talking about there is knowing what you need, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of that relationship with yourself, you're like, this is what I need when I get in from work.
Right.
And I think, again, we don't have enough self-awareness about that because we are dishonest with ourselves around that and who we want to be and how we're expected to show up. So we've spoken about values, and the key message there is be honest. We talked a little bit about also finding the bits of yourself that you don't like, your shadow work.
Yeah.
I have found that one of the most confronting things that I've had to do this year around even just kind of like relationship choices that I've made for the wrong reasons. Like, you know, I needed to be with someone that had the abs and the muscles and all of that. And then I had to do some deep work around myself of going, why was that important to me? Because that's not who I am as a person. Like, that actually makes me uncomfortable that was something that I valued. And I had to sit with that. And then I realized the reason that was important to me was because I had such bad self-esteem issues that I wanted to be invisible. And if I was with someone that could be the showman, I then could sit behind that and not be seen. And that opened up a whole new layer for me of like, oh, okay, I've got some serious work to do over here on learning to love my body. And you just use the language in your skin. I've spent the last year becoming comfortable in my skin and loving my body and who I am. But I had to do the work of going, what's wrong with me in the first place? And I will say what's wrong with me because it wasn't true to me. It was something I'd adopted as a coping mechanism for a problem that was going on somewhere else. So shadow work is so important to me, of finding those bits you don't like. Have you got any builds on shadow work?
Yeah, I think be aware of them. I think oftentimes people spend an enormous amount of time fixing the parts of themselves that they dislike the most. There are things that are about you that are you. I mean, for me, I'm impatient, but there's a part of that that isn't shocking because I run an organization that needs to change quickly. So as much as I am the most impatient person in the world, I've become deeply patient for the people that I work with, but oftentimes still impatient with the global WPP because I've got to get things done. And there's something about rattling the cage in a very kind way. I call it charm and disarm.
Yep.
In a charming way where I'll talk to my boss and go, listen, this is what I need done, man. This thing is running slow. What's going on over there? Do I need to come and babysit somebody's children to get them to sign off on this? He will laugh. I will get what needs to be done. So I'm always reticent to go fix all the things about yourself that are your shadow elements. I will fix it to a degree, but not entirely, because some of those things make me me.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to run from it. I would rather invest time in the things that are more powerful for me rather than too much time in the things that I just know is how I am. I mean, I'm an introvert. That is hilarious to me. I'm an introvert running a very big business, but in the end, I don't like to, I'm a very private person. There's an introverted part of me, and there is you're on the stage, Rose, for a WPP, show up and be hopefully entertaining, insightful, interesting. And that is part of my job too. But in the end, I don't want to change the part of me that is introverted and private because it's who I am and it's what I do. And God damn it, I'm not going to let anyone take that away from me. Also, one of the other parts is that I'm hugely scrappy and I will not let any business, including the one that I currently work for, sand off my edges. I am edgy and I'm impatient and I'm rock and roll and pop culture in the way that I see the world. When I hear that buzzword bingo, Chloe, I go nuts. When I hear things like, paradigm shifty and all these other words that I loathe these words. I take a red pen to them in my head and I hear that person saying it and I think, please stop. That's just today's buzzword bingo. If somebody tries to sand off my edges, which is all that one would say negative part of me, I will rail against that because it's me. I am scrappy. I was raised in a migrant family in the western suburbs of Sydney. I do come from a small business background. I sold a couple of small businesses. I don't want to be polite to the degree that I lose myself in that. So there's a lot of dichotomy in that. But then I know myself enough to go, if WPP was like, we need you to sand off all those edges, I'd say, thank you so much for having me, but I am not the leader for you. And you will find somebody who represents a much more unsanded edges person.
But what I love about what you're saying is your strengths, the bits of yourself that you need to manage at times, right? So I think what you've done is developed a really strong level of self-awareness and gone, where do I actually is my something that could be perceived as a weakness, my biggest strength? And actually, I'm so proud of the fact that I won't take no for an answer. And if my team need me to get something done, I loved it when you just fiercely looked me in the eye and said, I'll get it done, And then there's the other side where it's like, oh, where is that like impatience or judgmental behavior not serving me and not serving the other person? But you only get that from this deep level of self-awareness that you have.
That's exactly right. So with patience, I'm patient with our people, which also makes you a much kinder leader. But with the machine of the business that I'm in, I am impatient and to hell with it. My job is to often be a bad cop so that my CEOs can be good cops. I don't want them in the muck of the system of getting something approved, for example. That's my job. My job is to pick up the phone, and just stalk somebody on WhatsApp until they give us what we need for Australia and New Zealand. Now, I'm very kind about it. I try to be charming about it. I try to use Aussie humour because Aussie humour is the best way to disarm somebody. You can put a pin back in a grenade with Australian humour faster than anything. But if I lose my impatience or my edge or my scrappiness, I become useless to WPP. And we started this conversation talking about being useful. I am at my best when I'm like, leave it with me, I'll get it done. And oftentimes CEOs will say, Rose, I need this sorted. Can you please figure out a way? And my job is to just figure it out and get it done. And I can get it done pretty quickly because I know where I need to go, who I need to call, how I need to maneuver, who I need to charm, who I need to offer a favour up to in exchange for them doing me a favour. I think these are good things, but it's not in the standard business practice of how to run a business if you are reading the Harvard Business Review. Management books don't teach any of this. They talk about matrix systems, and they talk about paradigm shift, and they talk about all the buzzwords that frankly are useless in the real world.
Absolutely. So we've got values, we've got strengths and weaknesses. The other thing you mentioned was like boundaries and your non-negotiables.
Yeah.
How do you work those out if you don't know? Because if I think about people I coach, they don't necessarily even have that as a foundational level, which I think is fair enough, to be honest, in terms of the world that we've been brought up in. How do you establish that?
Every single one of us knows when something is wrong for us. The problem is in our society that we have watered down our instinct and our intuition to such a degree. And the best example I can give you, one of my girlfriends was dating somebody who was good on paper. None of us liked him. He was not a good human being. He was not treating her with any respect. But on paper, he was a successful banker. He had a beautiful home. He looked the part of what any parent would love their daughter to marry. And I had to say to her, wake up. You look the least happy I've ever seen. You are losing weight from the stress of this relationship. You are saying things when he is in the room that you would never say in a million years. You are turning yourself inside out for this man who will ruin you. I mean, these are hard conversations to have. And I mean, my other girlfriends and I were like, flip a coin, who's going to have the conversation with her? She's going to go and marry this bloke and her life will be ruined. But the funny thing about all of this is she said to me, my intuition, Rose, has been screaming out. My instinct has been screaming out. I'm like, why are you avoiding it? Because I'm at a certain age. I want to have babies. I want to have a family. So I think the deal breaker is you've just got to go, what is my gut really telling me about this? And if your gut's saying run, then run. And that's the same in business. If this client is wrong for you, if they are not a good client for your business, stop chasing them. If the decision that somebody is forcing you to make about the work is wrong, then say it. I had a conversation with a colleague just this week, and she said, I hired somebody in my team. She's wrong, Rose. I knew it. But we were so desperate to fill the role. We went ahead and did it, and now I've got to have that terrible conversation about letting her go. I don't know what it is about this world, but your instincts will never lead you astray. I don't know what your own instincts have been in life, but you know that thing about, I know it's wrong, but I'm still doing it. I don't know why people, it's like in those horror movies. They know there's somebody behind the cupboard with a knife, but they still go behind the cupboard toward the knife. If that was me in that home in that movie, I would run from that home in 2 seconds. Someone's about to kill me. But people walk towards it. I've never understood it.
I think what you've just reminded me of is a thing I started doing with my friends when I had the realization that I wasn't listening to my intuition as much. I feel like other people can sometimes see what your intuition is telling you, but then there's this gap between what you actually do. And one of the things I've started asking my friends to do with me is tell me the things that I'm not seeing. Like, I need you to, I want to create stronger relationships with my friends where I'm like, what am I not getting? Like, and I need you to say it more bluntly, because I think what we do, particularly as women, is we sugarcoat the conversation, or we might lean in and go, Chloe, are you all right about that? And then I'll shut it down, right? I'll just be like, yeah, that's fine. I've not, I understand it, because I understand it at a rational level. But then there's like that deep feeling it. And I think about my history and where my friends were giving me, like, waving little amber flags at me, like, Chloe, you sure you're all right with this? And I'm like shutting it down, like, yep, it's all good. And then the reality of it is they should have been fucking pressing this massive red button with screaming alarms going, you need to stop. But the only thing I was making available to them was a small amber flag. And I'm trying to create relationships with my friends now where I'm like, just give it to me so fucking straight, because that's what I need to hear. But I need to give them curiosity. I need to listen more. I need to not just say, oh yeah, I get it, just because I understand it at a rational level. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So what you're talking about is really hard, because it's telling people the truth, and telling truth to power or truth to friends is super hard, because you don't want to feel like you're telling them how to live their life. I think it's really interesting, because the instinct and deal breakers, and we talked about deal breakers before, the things that you know are wrong for you, they're really complex and they're connected. So I'll give you just a really good example. I know for me, one of the first qualities I look for in a person is generosity. Generosity of spirit, generosity of time, but also generosity of money. And that doesn't mean you need to have a lot of it. Some of the stingiest people I've ever met have more money than God. They're multimillionaires, but they are cheap, because cheap in the pocket is cheap in the soul. And that's because my father was one of the most generous people I've ever met. So when I meet people and I look at the way they are with their money, if they are cheapskates, I will run a mile, because it has nothing to do, and I want to make this really clear, they can earn $35,000 a year or $3 million a year. You can have very little actual money but be incredibly generous. You can have more money than anyone and not. So, but I know that about myself. So even when I was on the dating scene and dating, if the guy was cheap and we'd be out on a date and he would expect me to pay because I'm not poor and I make a good income, if he'd just like sit there and wait for me to pick up the bill, I would be like, well, I'm never seeing you again. Because the assumption that you would make that I would pay for the bill is really rude. And it speaks to a higher power, but it's understanding the minutiae of the behavior. Those things are really hard, because I'm calling out what most people would think is a tiny thing. But it's not for me, because the minute you've got somebody behaving cheaply, I do see a deep connection between money and soul and generosity. And generosity means kindness. It means seeing the whole chessboard. But then you've got to really know that behavior. But that's a tiny thing that somebody would say, Rose, that's so inconsequential. Like, no, it's not. For me, it's a deal breaker. Absolutely 100% walk away. That person is cheap in every way a person can be. You do not want to be with that person, Rose, because you live in the world of extreme generosity. They're living in the world of extreme cheapness. You're going to clash on every single principle. But that's when, if I was with a friend and I'd seen that behavior, I would have said, are you okay with the guy just crossing his arms when the bill comes and just assuming something, not even asking you, well, can we go halves, or why don't we take turns? I mean, often when I go out with friends, I talk about if you split the bill, you split the friendship. So we will take turns to pay. Oftentimes I will pay often because I do make more than my friends, but there's something you need to speak about. You need to raise these things. These are the kinds of things that really bother me, but you need strong friendships to do it. You're talking about your friends talking to you about relationships. It doesn't happen enough. We're unspoken far too much in the world.
Oh, I'm asking them for everything. I'm literally asking them for like an executive summary of like how I'm doing and where they think I could do. But like I've become a little bit obsessed with like that regular honest feedback with them, because I've got to the point in my life now where I'm like, if you can see something quicker than me, which has happened previously and they've not told me, tell me. Because I want you to take me there, because life would look different had I not, if I'd been a bit more open to listening. But it was my level of curiosity. I was shy. They were do you know what I mean? It wasn't as if they weren't trying, but I just wasn't listening.
But that's really important. Listening is in all the little things, the unspoken things. It's like when I go out with new people to like, I always look at the way my dining companions treat the people that are serving us. If they are rude to the waitresses and to the waiters, I just know deep down they're a bad person. Because if you cannot be kind to somebody who is serving you food and realizing that that's one of the hardest jobs in the world and one of the most poorly paid, then what's wrong with them that they're treating the help like the help? It's just wrong. I often watch the way in our organisation our people treat the people that are the receptionists, the people that are front of house, the people that are our dispatch people who deliver the mail. If they are not treating those people and know their name, I'm like, you're now just performing. You're managing up to me. But that kid who's filling the printer with paper every morning, and his name is James, and he's a great guy, and he's one of a number of people who work with us. If you don't know who he is and you can't say good morning, or say to him, can I get you a coffee, James? Because your whole life is getting everybody coffees. Then there's something not quite right with him. And I look deeply, Chloe. You can see how I look at the deep behaviour of the people that I work with. And if there are little red flags, I think to myself, just store it in your mind. And this is the thing I'll say. The unseen behaviour is who somebody really is. The unseen behaviour. How they are when they're driving alone, how they are when they're in their own office, how they are when they're in their own home, when no one is watching. If that is the behaviour that is bad, then they're bad, because the behaviour shouldn't change from when somebody is watching to when somebody isn't watching. So I take that as a challenge to everybody who's listening. The unseen behaviour is who somebody really is.
You read people for a living. You know, you were saying earlier around like the way you lead. Your wisdom is because you read people, don't you, constantly?
I do.
I'm going to pause and see where that takes you.
I do. So if I'm what I love about, I mean, if I'm reading you right now, right? So if I'm reading you, you are genuinely wanting to not repeat the mistakes of your past. You are genuinely wanting to live a life of deep intention. And you genuinely, when your time comes to exit the world, as it will come for us all, you want to look back on your life and go, it was a life well lived. You want to be what my father says, which is you only live once, but if you do it right, once is enough. That's who you are. And you will be damned if you repeat the mistakes of the past. And you will fight and claw your way to the best possible life that you can live, even if it means giving up friends that perhaps are not good for you, giving up the kinds of relationships that are perhaps not good for you, and giving up the kind of work that brings you no joy. That's my take. And we've talked twice now. This is the second time, right? So my take on you is I will be joyful and in the moment, even if it costs me jobs, friendships, relationships, and probably even your own family. If they're not healthy for you, you're going to shed yourself of them. I mean, now I feel like I'm overstepping, but
No, you can never overstep with me.
That's kind of what I think about you, right?
Yeah, no, you're not overstepping at all. I'm taking that in.
How do you feel about what I've just said?
How do I feel? I feel seen because I think you're right. I am so committed. I'm a big believer that you can educate your way out of any situation, coupled with feel your way out of every situation. I think before my viewpoint on things was educate your way out. Like, I'll read every book, I'll listen to every podcast. I'm like, if something's going wrong, what do I need to do and learn to get myself out of this? And I do think there's an element of that. And then the journey for me in the last 6 months is like, what do I need to feel to get myself out of this? Like, what do I really need to understand? Because we can understand something at a surface level and then not truly get it at a deeper level. So just because someone can communicate something with you externally doesn't mean they actually truly feel it and get it. And learning that about myself, of like me having to unlearn and unlearn and unlearn over and over again to get things. That obsession is what you're seeing in me, I think, because I'm so committed to not making the mistakes that I've made previously, but also enjoying that process of self-discovery. Feels like the biggest gift of all. Like this morning, I'm oversharing again, but I was started dating someone and I was turning up in a way that I am not proud of, right? Like it was like my nervous system went into full overdrive. I was like, I'm so healed, I'm doing so well, life's amazing. And I was like, okay, I'm going to let someone else back in. And I just was not ready. I was like, my nervous system went into full overdrive. So we called that off and just said, look, this is going to have to take we're going to have to take a pause on this. But then I go into that deep work around why did I behave you like that? What's happening here? And I've gone all the way back to my childhood in terms of friendships and relationships and abandonment, and have gone into a bit of a hole in the same way you probably do with kind of consumer behavior of like, I want to know everything about myself. But I've got this like amazing feeling from asking myself those tough questions of like, oh God, I feel like I know my body and myself better. And I know how to now cope with that situation better next time. And that is like the greatest gift in life we can possibly have, to wake up in the morning and not know that about ourselves. And by the time I go to bed tonight, if I don't get hit by a bus, I'll get to go to bed with that deeper knowledge on me. And I think that's what life's all about.
But how wonderful, because what you're describing, Chloe, is that you are falling in love with yourself. You are becoming your best friend to yourself. Becoming friends with yourself is really nice. You know, there's a moment, every now and then I will do something in the world and I think to myself, I like that about myself. I like that I didn't listen to somebody's dumbass advice and did the thing that was the right thing to do. And it makes me proud to be my father's daughter, because everything for me is a barometer of my dad, because he was such an extraordinary human being. And my mother, but particularly my father, I was very close to him. And I think to myself, he would be very proud of the woman that I am in this moment. And then I think I dig that about myself. I dig that I didn't take the easy way out, because you could have just stayed in that relationship and continued on, but you didn't. You took the hard road. You took the road that was right for you, and you took the road that shows that you are your own best friend. I mean, how cool is that? I don't know. And then I think then you can live with yourself, because living with a version of yourself that is not the best version, is not true or right or kind or decent, I think that's how people get sick and die. I honestly do. I often think about what erodes the soul. And if you can't live with yourself, that's awful.
What questions do you think people should ask themselves to understand whether they know that? Because I do think there's the unknown of the unknown. It's a scary topic if you've not started the work.
Absolutely. Question number one is, the person that I admire the most, would they be proud of this behaviour?
I like that.
And that for me is always my dad. What would my dad, I mean, on my whiteboard in my office is in Croatian, što bi Nevenko radio, which means what would Nevenko do? My father's name was Nevenko. So it's, WWND, what would Nevenko do? To remind myself that he would do it in the most elegant and in the most wonderfully kind, but also incredibly intelligent way. You can be both graceful and tough, but elegant. You can be elegant about everything from letting someone go in the job. I mean, I have to have those conversations. All leaders do. But you can do it in a way that is incredibly helpful to them. What can I do for you to help you get the next job? What do you want me to do for you? How can we give this an opportunity for you to grow and shine? I just think that is the only question you need to ask yourself. And you'll know if the answer is, oh my God, they'd be so embarrassed and ashamed of me, then don't do it.
I love that. I'm taking that with me forever. That's in my toolkit now. Thank you.
Good.
I want to go on to work for a minute because I feel like you've given me so much deep insight on a personal level, but I'm wasting an opportunity if I don't talk to you about business, entrepreneurship, like growth. And I don't even want to ask you a question. Can I just leave that as a statement and see where your mind goes? Because you've got a really interesting brain, and I'd rather not direct it.
I think that so many of the clients that we have are awash in too much average information and average advice. And I think my job, and the job of anybody in any business, this could be in a small business, any business, including something like WPP, is to give less advice of a higher quality. Less, this is what you should do, but in a way that does something material and practical and credible and financially good for the business. It's very difficult right now to not talk in the world. Everyone's talking, everyone's LinkedIning, everyone's writing articles, everyone's giving opinion pieces. Very little of it, I think, is exceptional. A lot of it is just noise. So the advice that I give to myself and to everybody is, don't speak unless you can improve upon the silence. It's a great proverb. It's a Croatian proverb. It's also a Greek proverb. But my father, again, this is why my father was the most extraordinary man, because he would have these sayings and say to me, Rose, unless there's something more that you can add to the conversation, shut up. Just shut up. So I think in every meeting, think to yourself, what can I give this client that is useful, that will help them grow their business? If there isn't anything to say, don't. I think a lot of people talk, they show up, they flap around, they do all sorts of things to be present, but it's just noise. So what a challenge to not speak unless you can improve upon the silence. That's hard.
I think there's an element though that I want to be careful with that with people, because there's a lot of introverted people that I work with that actually feel that they've got nothing valuable to say, but actually they should be the ones that are speaking. And I want to, as an introvert, I just want to give you more space to kind of address that as well.
That's a very good point. People that crave power probably shouldn't have it, right? You know, the megalomaniacs who are power hungry probably should never have it. That's government, that's business, that's life. I think there's a difference between being introverted and not speaking up when you know it's a really good point. Do it. I think this is about the bloviators who just want to fill the space with lots of noise. They should say to themselves, is this advice useful? Is it original? Is it substantive? Is it lateral? Is it unexpected? If we go back to the superpower, is there anything that I'm about to say that somebody hasn't already said 50 times better than me, but I'm just going to repackage it and claim it as my own? Most introverts are the most interesting and clever people in any meeting. The thing that holds them back is the fear of being wrong or the fear of sounding not particularly bright or overstepping. To the introverts listening, you know when you've got a really good point to make it. Back yourself. I'm talking to the people who are bloviating and talking too much and taking up the oxygen in the room, who are justifying their job. And weirdly, those people are probably the most insecure. It goes back to our thing about they're insecure from birth, probably weren't loved enough, want to make space for themselves and be a presence. They need to do work on themselves and go, why do I need to keep talking and saying nothing particularly special? So, yes, that's a good point to clarify.
Just a build.
Yeah.
I was working, I've been running self-belief courses and different conferences, and a young girl, probably about 22, came up to me at the end of one of them and she was like, thank you so much. I just feel like every time I'm in a meeting, I don't speak up, and then a man will say it and everyone will go, great question. And it really made me sad because it took me back to when I was in my early 20s and I used to have those exact moments. Like I'd be sitting there in London and I'd be like, oh, I think I know the answers to this. I think we know what we need to do. And then someone else would say it and I'd be like, why don't I back myself in these moments? And I think leaders like yourself who create that safe space for people to do that. But isn't it sad that like that conversation is still happening around like a woman saying,
It is.
oh, and then a man says it, and that really grates on my heart.
It is, but here's the flip side of a good leader is in any room that I am in, I can see when someone is itching to say something but they're nervous. And when somebody who is high energy or opinionated to a fault is jumping in, and I'll often go, Bob, just pause so we can hear what Mary has to say. But I think a good leader can see it and pick up the vibe and the body language and let the introverted but very sharp person speak with whatever is smart and good and intended, and stop the person who's just yapping and yapping and yapping. So to all the leaders listening, we all know it when we see it. It's like pornography. You can't explain it, but you know it when you see it. Same for somebody in a room who is not willing to back themselves. And if you help them get their voice, the next meeting will be easier for them, and then the next one and the next one. It's an interesting needle to thread as a leader because you need to let those people shine, and sometimes all you need to is give them room to do it.
Yeah.
And shut down the loud person who always has the answer.
Yeah, I love that. You've just mentioned some advice for leaders, entrepreneurs. I have quite a lot of people who are setting up on their own and doing their own thing. Can we just tap into that side of you for a moment?
Do the research. So I say, as somebody who's had 3 businesses and sold 3 businesses, I was always very good, and I'm a quantitative futurist, so I know trends and it's my area of expertise. But before you dive in, do the desk research. Is your idea powerful? Is there a market for your idea? Is there white space that nobody else is claiming? Is there money in it? Hard questions first and privately. Often people who want to start a business, and I get 100 emails a week saying, you started a business, what do I need to do? I will often say, do the hard yards first. And then I give them a wake-up call. It is a thankless, pride-swallowing siege of working 100 hours a week, and it's lonely. People are like, oh gosh, you're so negative about it. I'm like, I'm not negative at all. I've done it 3 times. What I'm telling you is the truth that nobody wants to tell you. The downside of entrepreneurship and small business ownership, it's hard, back-breaking, pride-swallowing work. And at the end of that, you could be wrong and your business might fail. 1 in 10 small businesses survive 3 years from the date of inception. 1 in 3. Right? Sorry, 1 in 10. I should get the statistic right. 1 in 10. 10% are still around 3 years later. The lesson in that is I applaud your courage and energy, but energy cannot replace what is a good idea from a bad idea, a marketplace that is ready, an audience that wants your idea, wants to buy your product or service. Do the work. Do the work. Do the work.
Yeah, and I love what you said about lonely, because I think it can be an incredibly lonely space.
I mean, I remember at 24, a couple of years into Pop House, thinking, I'm the oldest 24-year-old in the country because I am working all weekend. I've got a staff that I've got to support. I've got payroll I need to make. I've got rent and all the other expenses. This is really hard. And I stuck with it because I did love being my own boss kind of is an awesome feeling. But in the end, gosh, I remember thinking everyone else at 24 is going out and having love affairs and getting hammered every weekend, and I'm just working. And that was great because I got ahead of the curve financially and emotionally and morally and in so many ways. But there is a price to pay. And I say to everybody, be willing and be aware of what that price is. It's a big price. Worth it? For me, it was definitely worth it. But there's the Mark Zuckerberg, Kardashian, I'm going to be the great influencer, self-employed, love my life, love my work. That's the fantasy of it. The reality is so much harder. Sorry to sound like a downer, but
No.
a modicum of reality here. And I would do it again. Absolutely, I'd do it again. But I don't want to sugarcoat what is a very hard road.
Well, it's also don't do that. Make the hard choice in life and expect it to be easy. Like I think there's an element of we make these hard decisions when we're in a place of like optimism. And then we have to appreciate, as long as we can kind of prepare ourselves for this is going to get difficult. I don't know if you've looked at the valley of despair before, the U shape in terms of like you go in with the optimism, then you get to the valley of like, why am I here? What am I doing? And it's the people that kind of have the resilience to push through that. But I think it's the people who have listened to people like you before and gone, this bit's going to get really difficult and I need to be okay with that uncomfortable feeling. But most people aren't comfortable with the uncomfortable, and we then scroll social media, vape, drink, drugs, hide from emotions, unhealthy like, do you know what I mean? Like people have interesting coping modes when actually that's the point when we're in that valley of despair where we need to dig in even harder.
That's a really important point you're making, because what you've also said is that people choose often to do a small business. A lot of people want it. I've got a lot of people coming at me to say, I want to do my own thing, but they forget they made a choice in that deep lull, in that gully. They have almost gone, oh, why am I here? And I want to say to them, you made a choice to be a small business owner or an entrepreneur. You made a choice to step out of the paid employment that is much more secure, where a paycheck comes every fortnight or every month. You chose it. You need to own it and you need to run with it. So that goes back to our initial conversation, choice, knowing who you really are. And some people, I'll be honest, very few people that I meet that want to start a small business are cut out for it. Now, I've said once or twice to people who've really asked me, do you think I could do it? And this is tough. And I'm to a close friend, I said, you do realise that it's lonely, backbreaking, pride swallowing. Nobody's going to throw work at you. You've got to go digging, particularly in a tricky economy. Are you sure you are ready? Because my experience of you as a human being is that you don't really want to work that hard. And this individual said, you're so right, it's not for me, is it? And I said, I don't think it is. I think that you are just having a bad month at work. Dig down. Maybe it's a different job you're seeking at a different company, but starting your own business is a hell of a thing to do unless you really want it. But again, these are so we're now talking about the truly hard conversations that people don't really want to have with themselves.
Yeah, I was thinking that it's come. We've gone full circle back to self-awareness, right? Going full circle because I've run out of your time. We're going to end this because we haven't even spoke about unexpected. I'm so sorry. I just went full, like, let's find out from Rose how you raise self-awareness. Say something unexpected to end this interview for me.
The person that you think you want to be may not be the person that you want to be at all. The person that you think you want to be may not be the person you want to be at all. And that's heavy. It's a heavy way to end. But there's what media tells us we should be, and there's what we really want to be or who we really are. Run towards yourself. It will be the greatest unexpected gift of your life. Run towards yourself.
I think you're going to make me cry. Can we be best friends now? I'm a little bit obsessed with
Chloe,
you.
Listen, I'm obsessed with your ability to tell the truth about everything. I think it's the most wonderful gift in the world. Imagine being where you are and who you are. Your life will be magnificent because you are willing to go to the places that most people are not willing. Good for you.
Thank you.
I'm cheering for you. I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for Chloe Hooper.
Thank you. I appreciate you. We end every episode by asking who your limitless woman is, which you can't do WWND on this one because we are going female. But who is your limitless woman and why?
Look, I've been a big fan. We're sitting in the studio where Kath O'Connor had such a great career for Nova. I love this woman. She has taught me more about how to lead than probably anybody. I listened to the podcast that you did with Kath. I listened to it twice because I find her turn of phrase and the way that she lives in the world a lesson to us all. So everybody should listen to it. Katie Rigg-Smith, you've had Amy Buchanan, you've had, these are all women that you've already had who are all inspirational in their own different ways. But for me, it's got to be Kath O'Connor. Unbelievable lady.
Yeah, she was just a
Yeah.
powerhouse. I can see why you two get on so
Yeah.
well. Thank you so much for doing this twice. I feel so I'm so glad the first one messed up because I got to have another conversation with you. Thank you, universe, for doing that wrong. I appreciate you being here, and we'll hopefully we'll catch up soon.
No, thank you. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you so much. Oh my